He was the quiet one in the corner, a new face, fresh from intake, just trying to survive his first day behind bars. But in a place where strength meant power, silence could be mistaken for weakness. When the prison's biggest bully decided to make an example out of him, no one stepped in. They didn't know who he really was. They didn't know what he'd done before this place. What happened next would shake the entire prison to its core. Before the bars and the concrete walls, Malik Ford lived a life built on discipline. Years of sweat, blood, and bruises in underground gyms had shaped him into one of the most feared MMA fighters in the world. But fame and strength couldn't protect him from a system that saw his skin before his story. One wrong accusation, a fight gone wrong, a man with connections, and suddenly the champion was branded a criminal. Now his world had shrunk to a 6x8 cell. The sound of slamming doors replaced the roars of the crowd. He didn't speak much, didn't boast, didn't explain. In prison, silence was safer than truth. The guards saw him as just another number. The inmates saw him as fresh meat. On his first day in the yard, whispers spread fast. The new guy was quiet, strong-looking, maybe cocky. In a place ruled by dominance, that was enough to spark interest. The self-proclaimed king of the block, a white inmate known as Rex the Butcher, Malone had already decided to make an example out of him. But what no one knew was that beneath Malik's calm expression was a storm trained to explode with precision. Years of combat had taught him control. But even control has limits when pride, pain, and prejudice collide. He wasn't here to prove himself. He was here to survive. But survival in a place like this often meant standing up to monsters, and sometimes becoming one. By the second week, the prison had already decided who Malik Ford was, another quiet black man who wouldn't last long. The walls whispered stories faster than truth could catch them. Every stare he met carried judgment, every smirk a warning. Even the guards played their part. Lingering eyes, racist jokes muttered just loud enough to be heard. Meals accidentally skipped. In this place, color wasn't just skin. It was hierarchy. Malik had learned to ignore the noise. He woke before dawn, did push-ups in silence, and kept to himself. But his composure only made them angrier. The bully, a massive inmate named Rex the Butcher Malone, saw Malik's silence as defiance. Rex had ruled this block for years, fueled by hate and fear, backed by his crew of white supremacists who called themselves the Brotherhood. They fed off humiliation, and the newest inmate had just become their next target. It started small. A shove in the cafeteria line, a stolen tray, a taunt about jungle fighters. Malik didn't react. But in prison, restraint was mistaken for weakness. Every day, Rex pushed harder, pouring water on Malik's food, mocking his calm, daring him to fight back. Other inmates watched from the shadows, waiting for the explosion. The tension built like a loaded gun. One afternoon, during yard time, Rex cornered him. The sun blazed down on the cracked concrete as the circle formed, laughter echoing off the walls. "What's wrong, champ? Forgot your cage fight moves?" Rex sneered, his voice dripping with venom. Malik stood still, unmoved, eyes locked on the horizon. Then Rex shoved him, hard. The crowd roared. A guard glanced their way and turned back, pretending not to see. It was entertainment now. The second shove came faster, the third even harder. Malik stumbled, fists tightening by instinct. He'd spent years controlling his rage, channeling it into precision. But this wasn't a ring. This was survival. Rex's words cut deeper with each insult. "You think you're better than me, boy?" he spat, pressing his forehead against Malik's. "Say something. Show me you're not scared." But Malik didn't move. He just stared, calm, silent, unreadable. It was the same look he'd given every opponent before breaking them in the ring. Then came the slap. Loud, sharp, echoing across the yard. The crowd fell silent. Even the air seemed to pause. For a moment, Malik didn't move. Then his shoulders straightened, his jaw tightened, and in that stillness, something shifted. Something dangerous. The guards pretended not to notice. The Brotherhood grinned, waiting for blood. They didn't realize they'd just woken a storm that couldn't be contained. The yard would never forget what happened next. The yard fell silent, that rare, heavy silence that only comes before chaos. Rex stood over Malik, laughing, hands spread wide like a victor. "That's what I thought," he growled. The Brotherhood cheered behind him, pounding on the fences. To them, this wasn't just a fight. It was dominance, a public show of power. But in that stillness, something inside Malik snapped. Years of injustice, the weight of every insult, every time he'd been looked down on, treated less than human, it all ignited. His eyes lifted, calm yet blazing with fury that came from something deeper than pride. It was survival. When Rex lunged again, Malik moved. Not wildly, not emotionally, but with terrifying precision. One motion, one strike, and the sound that followed made the entire yard freeze. Rex hit the ground, choking, gasping for air. His body twisted, muscles trembling, eyes wide in disbelief. He'd never seen someone move like that. Not here, not in chains. The Brotherhood rushed forward, but Malik was already in motion. Weaving, deflecting, disarming without rage, without hesitation. Years of championship training unfolded like instinct. The guards shouted from the tower, but none dared step in. And when it was over, Malik stood alone in the middle of the yard, breathing hard, blood dripping from a split lip. Around him lay silence. Not the silence of peace, but of fear. He didn't raise his fists. He didn't shout. He just looked down at Rex, the self-proclaimed king, now broken, trembling, begging for air. For the first time, everyone saw him for who he truly was. Not just a number, not just another black man in chains. He was something far more dangerous, a man they could no longer underestimate. But that moment of power came with a price, and it was one the system would make him pay. The next morning, Malik's name spread through the prison like wildfire. Guards whispered it. Inmates repeated it in disbelief. The man they mocked, the one they thought was weak, had dismantled the most feared bully in seconds. But instead of praise came punishment. They threw him in solitary. No trial, no statement, just disciplinary action. Because in their eyes, it wasn't self-defense, it was aggression. He was a black man who fought back. And that was enough. In the darkness of that cold cell, Malik replayed it all. Every insult, every moment he'd bitten his tongue, every time he'd chosen peace. He hadn't wanted to fight. He just wanted to exist. But in a world built to break men like him, even silence was seen as defiance. Days passed. No sunlight, no sound. But word of what he did had already reached beyond those walls. Inmates began standing up for themselves. The Brotherhood lost its control. Even some guards started questioning the system they enforced. When Malik was finally released from solitary, the yard was different. No one laughed at him. No one dared to call him boy. He'd earned a kind of respect, not from violence, but from truth. The truth that every man deserves dignity, no matter the color of his skin or the weight of his past. Years later, when he finally walked free, reporters tried to dig up his story. Some called him a monster. Others called him a survivor. But those who truly understood knew he was a symbol of resistance against a system that punishes strength when it's found in the wrong color. Because in America, sometimes it's not the fight that defines you. It's who you are when the world keeps swinging first. Don't miss more powerful real-life stories. Hit subscribe now.